DSM 915-544-5876 or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Oh, it is one of those most important days for the week. Dare I say sacrosanct, though we do have some slight adjustments. Don't worry, Free For All Friday, still the name, still what we're going to be doing through the bulk of it, but some slight adjustments, as in we are going to be squeezing in one interview for y'all today, as was being requested. Wanted to follow through on it. We're going to be having the interview with the other EPISD District 6 candidate, Jacqueline Martinez. So we're going to get into that one right now, but we are going to be taking those phone calls right after this. So regular progression otherwise, with just a last tidbit. And I mean, usually if we end up getting interviews like, Thursday, Friday, it's like, okay, well, we'll hold it for next week. But Election day is tomorrow, so we're going to go ahead and do this, because otherwise it's like, barn, horse, etc., door closed. Anyway, so we have people chiming in there already, and I appreciate y'all's enthusiasm for Free For All Friday, like Ida Beza, Garner, Ambabanda, chiming in with, of course, the Rock On and Wave, and good Friday afternoon to you as well, Mr. Zavala there in the audience. So we're going to get into this interview, because making sure people know what candidates have to say, and therefore making their choices on it. Well, I don't know of any other way to really go about this besides, well, I guess I could pulpit preach from it, but I'm super uninterested in doing that, because, hey, we don't make editorial endorsements of candidates. We're going to talk about them and say what is good, bad, and of course hear from y'all. So we've got that interview again. Jacqueline Martinez, EPISD candidate in the runoff election for District 6, which if any is anywhere out there, I will be there with you to help you vote if you feel the need to, because if you're in District 6, I'm in the same one as you. Well, we'll meet up and we will advocate for you getting a provisional ballot if need be. So we got that interview right now. We're going to get that out of the way right at the start of the show, and then, of course, get into the phone call. So if you want to get on the line, the lines are open. Of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. But again, feel the duty, since, we did the interview, spoke with Jacqueline earlier today. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Jacqueline Martinez, a runoff candidate for EPISD District 6. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely happy to finally get you on and talk about this race, because, of course, as there is a lot of conversation going on in a lot of other ways about education, priorities for it, funding, particularly in the state of Texas, the local aspects of it and the local decisions that are going to be made are absolutely crucial. So for those that have somehow missed any of this, and particularly the local and the runoff race that, of course, we are on the cusp of, can you introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background and the qualifications you feel you bring to the office?
Yes, absolutely. So my name's Jacqueline Martinez. I am a 13-year veteran teacher, born and raised here in El Paso, graduate of Franklin High School. I firmly believe that we need more educators with classroom experience and education background on the school board. We are lacking a teacher voice across the country, really, when it comes to school boards. And I just think that people who tend to be on school boards, as well-intentioned as they may be, I think that if they don't have that unique insight or perspective of how policy plays out in the classroom, then it's kind of like the blind leading the blind. That they lack that understanding that only a teacher who's been practicing, education in the classroom for, well over a decade can bring to the decision-making table.
Okay, so of course we are again on the cusp of election day itself here, and we have seen some, at the very least, all the indications leading up to this, pretty low voter turnout. So the individual decisions that people who are actually going to be going to the polls will be that much more significant is than my follow-up argument. But of course, getting into your platform and some of the major issues that you focus on here, frankly, from then that perspective of being, because you are currently, at least as of this most recent school year, currently a teacher within EPISD, right?
No, I do not work for EPISD.
Oh,
I
okay.
work for Canutillo ISD. You're not allowed to run for the school board if you work for that district.
That does clarify at least one question that had come up there. So then, of course, talking about addressing the teacher shortage, what would be your major focuses and ways of accomplishing that if, again, elected to office?
Absolutely. So, we've got this mass exodus of teachers right now. We've got people leaving the profession in droves, first and foremost, because it is not well compensated. But addressing the teacher shortage, it goes beyond a pay raise. It's and I think teachers will completely understand this, that there is a lot of micromanagement that goes on within our profession. And a lot of it has to do, it's rooted in the standardized test, the state standardized test known as STAR. We are creating this very toxic work culture, not just for the teachers, but for the students as well. It's become this unhealthy, over testing culture as we, try to prepare them for this 1-day exam that doesn't fully, it does not give us a full picture of student learning. It's this one test on this one day. And throughout my career, it never fails. Every year, we've got students having, these meltdowns or these anxiety attacks. And I just think that it's this unneeded stress and anxiety that we're placing on students, all because, from the STAR test, the schools will get their ratings, that affects their funding. And it's an unnecessary stress that we need to be placing on students. I've also spoken to parents about this who are also concerned about the over-testing of kids and the over-emphasizing of the STAR test. I think this is where that toxic work culture for both students and teachers stems from.
So a few important things you brought up there, but so on that aspect of particularly compensation, and I mean really this is going to be kind of an overarching subject across most of these things. Of course, the state has a significant role and setting of the priorities, even as we're recording this, there are questions about how that will be handled as we're facing the prospect of multiple special sessions, including one on the potential for teacher compensation and of course the whole school choice vouchers, etc. type issue. But so again, specifically on the local aspect of that, then so on the compensation then for teachers, if again elected to office, what would be the ways or avenues you would expect to be able to address that or see something come into effect?
I definitely think that there needs to be a very careful review of where we are overspending, because I do believe that within the education system, there is a lot of frivolous spending on things that don't necessarily impact students or student outcomes. And one of them is definitely test prep and curriculum for the STAR test. The STAR test is $1 million business that doesn't serve students. The number one factor that does affect student outcomes is the teacher in the classroom. And so that is something that I would definitely want to direct, allocate funds towards, because it is something that is important to, student achievement. So,
and again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Jacqueline Martinez, runoff candidate for the El Paso Independent School District, District number 6. And of course, Election Day coming up here Saturday, June 10th. So if you want to find anything more information about her positions, what we're talking about here, Jacqueline for EPISD.com, the main website, and also the different versions that are available over on social media as well. So that's JACQUELINEFOR, EPISD.com. So, and then, okay, now on the other aspect of that involving, again, primarily the state here, the standardized testing, I mean, the STAR is, of course, state mandated. And we've had a version of that back in my day. I think we had the TOS test and then became the TAX and the TAKES. And then, of course, the variations of the evolution of that name. But it's been constant throughout. And so it is state mandated and state required. So kind of given that, how would de-emphasize, I mean, obviously you can't remove it at the local level or anything even approaching that. So what would be, again, the avenues of how you would address that or kind of, again, approach your priority and goal if again elected to office?
Right. So I understand completely that the standardized test, a state standardized test, is federally mandated. I want to clarify that I'm not saying let's do away with it. A lot of people take that message and say, oh, she wants to dodge accountability. Absolutely not. I am a teacher. I want to make sure that, my students are learning. What I think we need to do is de-emphasize it, meaning this over testing throughout the school year. And you can ask any teacher, it's become, it's overbearing for the children. And so we don't want to be placing this stress and anxiety on them. We want to be de-emphasizing this test. Understand that, yes, it's important. Do we want students to do their absolute best? Yes, we do. But placing these kinds of expectations on them to quote unquote perform, I don't think that's healthy for children. A lot of times you will hear people say, oh, if I don't pass this STAR test, or if my child doesn't pass this STAR test, they're not moving to the next grade level. I don't know where that became like the norm to say that to kids, because in my 13-year career, it is very, very rare for a student to not get passed to the next grade level for not passing the STAR test. There are other factors that get taken into consideration when you have a child who has failed the STAR test. And so I'm not trying to do away with accountability. I'm trying to do away with the toxic work culture that we've created around the test. Which also, it affects students for sure, but it also affects teachers.
Because like you kind of mentioned, there's also then part of evaluations kind of like affecting careers of not even just, of course, students, but teachers based on what can sometimes seem like coming down to this one metric, essentially. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a huge disservice to students and to teachers to use this one test, this one day, this single day test to be evaluating teachers, to be labeling students. A lot of students, you can have a student who is a, straight A student all year long. They may have test anxiety. They may have had a bad day. And from that one test, they are now labeled, at risk, did not meet. And I think that's really detrimental to, a student's confidence level.
And so, of course, your other main priority that you've been putting out in the campaign literature on your site, and among other things, is making school safe. And again, there's a lot of state involvement on this here, but of course, a lot of conversations have been going on around this, including the idea of, school resource officers, armed people within schools. And what would be the way that you would want to go about this and, again, accomplish that, again, from the local perspective, if, again, elected to office?
Yeah, absolutely. When I say make schools safe, obviously, of course, physically safe. I don't think anyone, has any argument against making schools safe, but I'm also referring to the emotional well-being of students. As a teacher, I've always made my classroom a safe and welcoming space for all students, regardless of what community they belong to or identify with. And the goal is to make it a place where a student does not have to endure, bullying or harassment or any kind of discrimination. And so that's what I'm referring to when I say, make schools safe.
Okay, so dealing with, resources available, sounds like counseling would be maybe a portion of that, if at all possible.
Absolutely, but I think it's important to understand that counselors are also overwhelmed with this unmanageable workload. The state standard is to have 250 students to one counselor. I don't understand how that's the standard. That is a huge disservice to students.
Okay, and so then, of course, coming down from the state, again, from already, we know this much from the recent legislative session, has been about, physical safety standards, accessibility, locks, those kind of things. And there has been some funding allocated, but again, some of the larger questions are still to be resolved when it comes to those specific avenues. So frankly, on this end of the other ones that you have mentioned here, it sounds like you will be looking at revamping budgets at the very least. And of course, one of the major things that the school board ends up setting is the tax rate for the EPISD, and being one of the bigger shares of the slice of the tax dollar pie here. So when it comes to those considerations, again, setting of the tax rates, what would be the primary ways you would want to go about that, and then the goals you would have as place of it?
When it comes to the tax rates, it's not something that I would set on my own. There's an entire, body of governance that makes this decision together. And so I think that, as a newcomer, if I were to make it to this seat, I would definitely be asking questions about how this large portion of property taxes is affecting student outcomes. What is directly going to impact them? How are we going to make it so that this money is allocated in a way that benefits students primarily?
And of course, one of the other major things, the things that often end up making their way into the ballot in their own right, are the bond elections here. So separate from even just setting up general and yearly tax rates and budgets. When it comes to that, of course, the EPISD had its bond 2016 still in effect. I mean, there are still things moving around with that on it. But when it comes to considerations, if there were to be a future bond proposed or put forth, what would be your considerations and stances on the possibility and your acceptance or not of it?
So again, I support anything that is going to affect student outcomes. And I think we need to be asking those kinds of questions whenever it comes to any bond or passing of any funds that are being allocated. The question is, how is this going to affect students primarily? Is it going to improve outcomes? How is it going to impact them in a positive way?
So then generally, essentially, if there were to be something similar to the previous EPISD bond that were to come up, say within this next term of office, would you consider yourself potentially in favor of it, have to evaluate it, or how would you characterize it?
I am in favor of anything that is going to impact students directly in a positive way and improve student outcomes.
All right, fair enough. And of course, final question here. Of course, there has been a lot of conversation about what is happening within schools, education, culture wars in general have been brought up as part of this. And so when it comes to that, those level of issues, I mean, we've heard of, things going on in front of school boards, people being very passionate about issues, but kind of in those general areas of issues that kind of go beyond what is necessarily exactly on the curriculum, though it can involve it there. What's your perspective on that, and how would you, again, handle those type of issues if elected to office?
I'm really glad you brought this up, because this is a question that has been coming up a lot during my block walking. When it comes to these culture wars, first and foremost, I'm speaking from my teacher lens. I have always made the classroom a warm and welcoming, safe space for students. I know a lot of parents are concerned, rightly so, about inappropriate, not age appropriate, subject matter coming into the classroom. I want to clarify for parents out there that are listening that teachers don't get to pick and choose what we teach. Whatever it is that we're teaching in the classroom is state mandated by the TEKS. That's the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. We don't get to pick and choose. And so I'm not sure how this, I feel like the information out there, who knows how it got out there in the first place, but teachers are not trying to, groom or indoctrinate any students. We can barely get them to do their homework. We don't hold that kind of power. And so, and in my 13-year career, I've never witnessed it or experienced it where a teacher is trying to impose, their own beliefs. There are things that, yes, parents have a right and a responsibility to teach their kids. And I don't know of any teacher who is trying to impose their own beliefs or teach something that is not age appropriate to students. So just wanted to clarify.
Absolutely. One of the more overarching concerns outside of just the classroom, one of the lightning rod type of issues has been necessarily particular books in libraries, which is maybe a little bit more in the wheelhouse of than the school board. So for those kind of considerations, then in this whole realm of issues, what would be the way you would handle this or consider it if, again, elected to office?
So again, I think that every parent has a right and a responsibility to censor what their child reads or, views on the internet, all that stuff. That's their right and their responsibility. I do think that it's an overreach to try and censor everyone's child. And so I do not support book bans. I do support a library that's filled with information for students, where this is our opportunity to educate students and become good citizens. Another thing that I want to mention is that, parents who feel very strongly about this and do support book bans and are afraid of, the material that their child has access to in the library. We're living in a time of social media and YouTube and the internet. Whatever they're trying to censor in the library, there is no way to completely censor your child from access to the internet and what they see on YouTube and social media. And so a library is a more, I guess, appropriate way for a student to get information, because the books that enter a library are checked by, a certified librarian who has to have their master's degree, who has to be certified. They're not going to let whatever garbage you'll find on the internet become a source of information at the library. And so I want to clarify that as well.
Absolutely. So again, guest right now, Jacqueline Martinez, EPISD runoff election candidate for District number 6. Again, any information about her campaign, positions, or what we've been discussing here, Jacqueline for EPISD.com, the main website, and find her similarly over on Facebook and Instagram. So that's JACQUELINEFOR, EPISD.com. So Jacqueline, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. And of course, ahead of the final finale of the runoff election here tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So again, thanks, Jacqueline Martinez. Happy to finally get that interview on. So yes, a little bit outside of the norm for Free for All Friday, but we can't exactly be like, yeah, we'll get to it next week. It'll be fine. Wait, what's happening on the weekend? Yeah, we had to get that one on. But Buddy Vias asking a question, and some other ones, the commentary been popping it up. But Buddy Vias asking a question about that we did address at the start of the interview. Can she teach and serve at the same time? She teaches in a different district. She said she teaches in Canutillo, because that was one of the initial questions I had. Like, okay, you're our teacher, so does that mean you're your own boss? Or your boss's boss, more accurately. So no, that is the explanation she gave on that part. But I mean, I will say that the school board is a primarily voluntary. It's unpaid. So everyone doing it has to have another job or source of income. I'll say that. Whether or not it can be juggled in the same kind of way, well, I would hope that school board meetings are done not during school hours so that the school-involved people can be there, but I'm not in charge of scheduling those. I'll just put it that way. Anyway, Free for All Friday, we're back on track, and we are going to take those calls. We've had some people very patiently on the line, and we'll get to those, but if you want to get on the line, the lines open and available, those phone lines, specifically 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Lots of slow traffic in the East Valley on Loop 375 southbound because of a crash involving a semi on southbound Loop 375 before Montana. That crash is blocking all southbound lanes. There is over an hour delay. In the Lower Valley, I-10 eastbound at Loop 375, another crash that just happened. 2 lanes blocked, including the left interchange ramp. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Verizon. Ready to take control of your phone plan? Well, then you better take that next turn to a Verizon store, because my plan from Verizon is the kind of control we all deserve. Get exactly what you want. Only pay for what you need. Get my plan at your Verizon store today.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Haley, quote, Navage is the best thing I bought. I love it. My nose feels so clear now and I can breathe. I've been struggling with a stuffy nose for weeks. I bought Navage and it's amazing. Or this one. I use Navage every night, could not imagine life without it. I have 5 cats, and before I found Navage, I was a clogged mess. Now I breathe so much better, unquote. Those are 2 of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
A catalytic converter is an important component of your car's exhaust system. They can cost several $1,000s to replace. Cats can be removed in under a minute and have a high scrap value. Keep your vehicle safe from cat burglars. Park in well-lit areas. Install a protective device. Have your VIN number etched onto your catalytic converter. It's a total catastrophe. If your catalytic converter is stolen, lock it down. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-334-2266. That's 800-334-2266. 800-334-2266. Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, or most of the comments come in anyway, but also Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and twitch.tv, like Amanda Mancanda. Yo to you as well. Chiming in over there. Appreciate you tuning in, chiming in, participating in the show. If it's just to say hi, well, let us know if someone's out there. Otherwise, I'm just kind of talking into a microphone, hoping someone else is out there. I mean, the ratings give me some hope, but still, it's not exactly like a staged performance type audience reaction kind of thing. Some other commentary coming in, including Buddy Vias saying he got in late for the interview, but that he liked what he heard. Hey, that's the beautiful thing about the way we put these on, because particularly if we're on the social media, you can see all of our previous episodes. At least I believe they're all up there. All the ones we were able to get online anyway. So if there were the technical issues, all bets are off. But you can go back and see this one. Also, of course, the one that we did previously with the other candidate in this particular race, Valerie Ganelon-Beals. Before you make your decision, as I will be going out to the ballot box tomorrow. Yep, that's what I got on deck, and I'll be headed out to do myself. But other commentary coming in, but also those dropping those likes and reacts, such as James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Ida Beza Gardner, Flaco Jimenez, Luis Pinado, and Angel Rueda. Do appreciate that. And yes, a little understandard for Free for All Friday. I understand entirely, but let's get right back on track and dive right into those phone calls here. Full up at the moment, but keep that number handy. Well, it's got it on the screen there for you for those who are able to look. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Edgar Ortiz on board with us as well. So let's go straight into the phone lines. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah, hello there. I guess I'll talk about that race, since tomorrow is election day.
Sure.
I've pointed out in the past, the differences between the two candidates is really night and day. Just a reminder to your audience, Jacqueline Martinez, she has 2 bachelor's degrees, one in English literature from St. Mary's, another in health promotion from UTEP, and most impressly, a master's degree in education policy and leadership from University of Texas at Arlington. To invest that amount of time and money, getting a degree in education policy, it really does show that her heart and soul is in the well-being of these kids and their education, the outcomes. And, when you compare her to Valerie Bales in your interview with her, she said her only qualification for this position was being a mother. I pointed out how that's pretty absurd, on its face. And, the EPISD budget is hundreds of millions of dollars meant to serve one of the most important causes, of educating our children and future generations. There's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mother, but if that's your only qualification to manage a budget of hundreds of millions of dollars and to oversee the education of thousands, let's be real. Let's be real. And in your interview with Bales, she said she doesn't know how the budget she would be tasked with managing is spent in our schools in general. And then in an interview with El Paso Matters most recently, she tells them that her socializing with people in different social settings provides an understanding of what areas in the school budget are most important. like that's you can't make this stuff up. That's pretty absurd. Just talking, that's not how you understand, how the school budget works and what's in it. And Jacqueline Martinez, she's been teaching children for 13 years and has a master's degree in education policy. She knows exactly what our budget is being spent on, where improvements can be made, where money is being wasted, and how to get resources into the hands of her fellow teachers for them to be able to educate their kids to the best of their abilities. Because that's what this position is all about, is increasing the educations, the quality of education of El Paso's kids and future generations, so that they can compete with kids from other school districts and in other states, once they get out of high school in the future job market, the kids, investing in them and their quality of education.
Sure.
It makes us more competitively on the global market and makes our economy produce more efficient and productive. It makes us more competitive globally with the educations and the economies of other countries. That's why, the educations of our children is really important.
Certainly.
Like on a very massive scale that a lot of people don't really see, if or have in the back of their minds. And if you look at Jacqueline Martinez's policy positions, she's really concerned about the well-being of these children and what they're able to accomplish when they get out of high school. Preparing them for trade schools, and jobs out of high school, not just college. And I mentioned the other day, she has a ton of friends, through her 13 years of teaching, I'm sure, of people who teach science, math, and these subjects that that children really need to do better in order to perform well in college and in these trade professions. And she knows what these teachers need to do their jobs properly in those fields, and she teaches English herself. So I mean, the choice between the two is just night and day. I would also mention that Kids First PAC that's financing Bales and propping her up, it's created and financed by millionaires, and they clearly don't have the kids' best interests at heart, and they're not putting kids first if they're going to be supporting a candidate as unqualified as Bales, when compared to the powerhouse Jacqueline Martinez is. Just looking at her job history and her credentials and what she's invested her time studying and preparing herself to do. And you disagreed with me like the other day about there being no logical reason to support Bales if they care about the educations of their children. And, I just strongly disagree with that. The differences between the two are just so night and day. Like you can't say that you care about the educational outcomes of children if you're going to support a person like Bales, who says her qualifications being a stay-at-home mom and homemaker. There's nothing wrong with being those things, but this position is just too important to entrust in a person who's that unqualified.
Again, you're certainly entitled to your opinion on what you feel is the best choice for candidate, though, if I remember correctly, you said you're not in this district, but still advocating for what you want to see. And ultimately if you're in EPISD at all, the decisions made by any of the candidates, any of the trustees will affect your tax rates, education of the children, or all of the ones that you have in the system. So, certainly understand that. And they actually didn't have a good handle on how much the budget is. And we've certainly talked a lot about the bonds previously, but the proposed budget for 2023-2024 actually for EPISD currently sits at the grand total of being $633 million and $200,000 extra dollars thrown in there as well. So, I will say that you got your perspective and your candidate you feel would be better suited for it, and that's entirely your prerogative. Though, I mean, I don't feel the need to defend any candidates, but I took it more from the previous interview about the perspective of being a parent involved with the school for Beals, not as a, I don't know how budgets work, but as a not seeing the impact of the changes in budgets then in individual classrooms. I mean, among other things, I mean, that's a common-ish refrain that whatever is going on at the top end, teachers still end up having to, you know, buy things. That kids are being, their parents are being asked to bring in enough tissues for the class, those kind of things. And that's just some recent ones I remember from shopping lists, and friends who do have children of that age have been asked to do. So, I mean, I'm not going to call it an invalid perspective, and people are certainly entitled to make up their own minds about this. We do not endorse or support individual candidates. We want people to just go out and actually vote on it. So, as of the end of early voting, there were not even just shy, but significantly shy of about 3,000 people voting, not even just in this race, but overall, which means that we don't have the exact numbers like per district, or at least not easily available. I think they have a spreadsheet you could download if we did like a lot of processing on it, which we ain't got the bandwidth for. So just to think it's fair to say less than 3,000 people, probably significantly less than 3,000 people have voted in this race, specifically -1 if you count Ed, which I don't blame you, Ed, but I do want you to go back and ask for that provisional ballot on election day. I think you have to ask for it, treat it like a secret item on the menu, but ask for it for sure and go and cast your ballot. So that is as much to say that, I mean, there are people who are going to make their decisions here. And I think that talking about what you think is the best about a candidate, if you're interested in doing so, is the best way to go about it, as opposed to saying, and therefore there's no reason to go after someone else, because that just kind of then plays against human psyche, because, well, saying that, well, there's no reason to, well, it's just, oppositional defiant disorder, those kind of things here. So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we're going to get to more calls, more comments, more of everything on the line, get a little bit back on track here. So let's go ahead and get into that. Again, that number to call if you want to call in is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update. The FBI is looking for a 21-year-old man named Isaiah Letts Rivera. The agency says Rivera is considered armed and dangerous and is affiliated with gangs connected to the El Paso, Las Cruces area. A federal arrest warrant was issued for Rivera last July after he was accused of receiving a firearm by a person under indictment. The three suspects in an alleged road rage incident that turned deadly are due to make their first appearance in court today. Raul, Cristian, and Jose Orozco, who are all charged with murder in connection to a shooting that happened on Tuesday night. The Orozcos claim that a gun went off during a struggle, but the police report says that story doesn't check out because a gun was fired twice. A man accused of breaking into a home in Northeast El Paso says the devil made him do it. Police say Tristan Billingsley broke into a house near Parkland Middle School. For more news headlines, head to our website, cbs4local.com. I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Two big crashes on your El Paso freeways right now. Loop 375 southbound before Montana. A collision involving a semi and a pickup. All lanes are closed. There's a backup to Railroad with an hour-long delay. I-10 eastbound at Loop 375. A collision there is blocking the interchange ramp from the 10 eastbound to Loop 375 northbound. That's exit 34A. It's closed. There's a backup to Zaragoza. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is forecaster Nasai Mancini. Well, folks, we're in for some pretty hot temperatures this weekend, even into next week as well. We'll see those temperatures in those 90s. We'll see a little bit of those breezes in the afternoon hours as well. So a little bit of those breezy conditions cooling us off just a little bit. Our lows are going to be in those 60s for this weekend, and then they'll warm on up into those 70s as we get into Tuesday of next week. Reminder, you can always head on over to kfoxtv.com for the latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small business print big. Now get $15 off signs, banners, and posters when you spend $75 or more. Offer ends July 1st. Visit staples.com/printbig for details. This is your sign to try Staples, where your prints are perfect guaranteed.
Shopping for a gift for dad or grad? Get Rosetta Stone for 40% off now through June 18th. Learning a language will expand their horizons and open up new opportunities in career, travel, and more. Choose from Spanish, Italian, Japanese, and over 20 more languages. Rosetta Stone memberships are for life, so your present gets them forever access to language learning tools they can use for years to come. Get it now at rosettastone.com. 40% off ends June 18th.
No, not now. That sounds like it's going to cost you.
I know what to do. I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, I could have the money in my account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
Want a $100 shopping spree on the latest fashion, home goods, or beauty products? Just download the Temu app and enter promo code IHEARTTEMU in the search bar and get started. That's TEMU. Get a $100 coupon bundle just by downloading the Temu app and using promo code IHEARTTEMU.
Off clean feel, so I can accessorize with studs and not with mosquitoes. I can wear my classic white crop and flag panel jeans and know that I'm covered with 8 hours of not sticky, fragrance-free protection. Get your pre-party protection on with Off Clean Feel. SC Johnson.
This report is sponsored by Off.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in, people chiming in, a lot of ways and arguments taking on their own form and format. There's a reason I often call this the Thunderdome of comments, because consensus is fleeting and agreement is occasionally welcome, but definitely bright sparks in the darkness sometimes. Anyway, let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, that number, if you want to get onto it, full up at the moment, but of course, just keep it handy, because you can get in on a little bit later. Here's a hint: when one call ends, another one becomes available, yada, yada. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us. And think we lost Ben. Yep, looks like we lost Ben. Okay, Ben, if you want to try again a little bit later, but well, moving right along, we do have Billy on the west side here with us right now. Billy, thanks for joining us.
Hey, just wanted to talk about Eric's assumptions on what's the best candidate for the school board. I would much rather see a teacher not be part of that. It's kind of like having the fox guard in the hen house. They're part of the problem. Having a parent in there that whether she's got the tremendous background that Eric says the other candidate has or not, they know what they're looking for in the management of their children. And a teacher that just has 13 years of experience and may or may not have kids, I have no idea. They really have no idea what parents are looking for. They know what they're looking for as a teacher,
okay,
but nothing else.
I mean, yeah, perspectives is definitely, I guess, a part of what's going on here. I mean, yeah, one as a teacher, one as a, I guess, basically way you're describing, kind of inside or outside, being a part of the system or receiving of the output of the system, basically. Then, right?
Yeah, because they just are part of the good old boys at that point. You know, everybody that's in office should be thrown out of office and new people put in each go round.
Okay, I mean, I can understand that as being a point of decision to be made here, because, I mean, different districts is the one that she is in, because, yeah, as much as there is some conversation about conflict of interest, being a teacher and then administering teachers, that kind of part of it, I mean, she is in a different district than the one she would then be on as part of the school board for, but I guess, I mean, I would think that having some perspective on how things actually work, I would hope that school board members do have an idea of, you know, what reality looks like and what it looks like, so to speak, in the trenches, because so much of the commentary we end up hearing, and already is being said here, of course, is that being unfamiliar with it, not knowing how it works, and just kind of doing the top-down thing, too much administration, so to speak, hasn't necessarily been a good thing either.
And anytime you go into a new job, you're going to have to learn what it takes and what they're looking at and what they expect out of you. I don't know that just because this teacher has 13 years experience that she knows anything about the budget other than what she sees that gets spent on her little classroom.
Fair enough. And that's one of the reasons that we do ask about, their perspective on budgets and particularly future bonds, because EPISD, it's still under the 2016 bond, but I mean, we've seen other ones floated. Canutillo, I think, has actually had one of the more recent bonds that has not totally worked out, but I wouldn't be surprised if that comes up again before too far.
Right. Okay. Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
All right.
Appreciate it. And tell you what, with that, let's get a little bit closer to being back on track and not blowing up these breaks. We're going to take that next break here real quick, get back on the line and get back to those calls here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Again, that phone number, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Two big crashes on your El Paso freeways right now. Loop 375 southbound before Montana. A collision involving a semi and a pickup. All lanes are closed. There's a backup to Railroad with an hour-long delay. I-10 eastbound at Loop 375. A collision there is blocking the interchange ramp from the 10 eastbound to Loop 375 northbound. That's exit 34A. It's closed. There's a backup to Zaragoza. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small business print big. Now get $15 off signs, banners, and posters when you spend $75 or more. Offer ends July 1st. Visit staples.com/printbig for details. This is your sign to try Staples, where your prints are perfect, guaranteed.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
Protect yourself and your valuables this holiday season. Never leave keys in your vehicle. Don't leave your valuables in plain sight. Park in well-lit areas. And most importantly, always lock it down. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority. Learn more at Lock It Down T.
In this week's Marketers Report, we learn about the value of local influencers in uncertain times. From Allison Griffin, head of marketing at State Farm.
The economy is tough for everyone, and taking a step back and understanding the pain that your customers are currently going through because of a tough environment is really important. We have 19,000 agents across the country, and they understand what's going on in those very unique communities. iHeart has such a broad broadcast reach that is local, connected, and for us to be able to touch customers with a local feel but at a national scale is so efficient and important for us.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to all. Every audience, live conversations, trusted influencers, and the insights and data you need to grow. Not just a media company. iHeartMedia is your access company. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
Off clean feel, so I can accessorize with studs and not with mosquitoes. I can wear my classic white crop and flag panel jeans and know that I'm covered with 8 hours of not sticky, fragrance-free protection. Get your pre-party protection on with Off Clean Feel. SC Johnson.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. And the phone lines are open and available, but we take the calls basically as we get them. So you can, of course, have comments if you want to get an immediate response over on our social media. But otherwise, we'll put you on hold for a minute and then we'll get to the calls here. So for lack of impatience there, what have you. And then, apparently I want to destroy the public school system by bringing you the interviews with the candidates here and not accepting someone's perspective on it here. So, apparently I'm the school Satan. Anyway, we got to take that next break here already, so I don't want to shortchange someone on the call here. Oh, geez. If someone's trying to tear me down, you got to do a whole lot better job of that than if it just makes me laugh. I just got to say it that way. So, we're going to take that next break so that we don't shortchange someone's on the call, but those phone lines are available. So, again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM is the number to call. Just the only difference is, I guess, patience and temerity, those who end up making it through or not. So taking that break for the top of the hour and that news break, and then we'll be into the second hour and delving into a whole lot more calls and all of that. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Number one more time, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Loop 375 before Montana Avenue, an earlier accident involving a semi and a truck cleared. All lanes are back open. Still a 30-minute delay. I-10 eastbound at the Loop in the Lower Valley. A crash there has closed the eastbound lanes and the transition ramp from the I-10 eastbound over to Loop 375 northbound. Expect delays, a backup to Zaragoza. Slow traffic through downtown. Piedras over to Geronimo. It's a 10-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
When your back pain is your foot's fault. This is Dean's story.
It was affecting me when I walked, which is a kind of a common activity.
Dean's chronic back pain had become a pain in the you-know-what.
At first, I just sort of ignored it, but eventually everything catches up to you.
Physically and mentally.
Back pain affects your mood. It really does.
But that's not the only connection Dean made.
A friend of mine suggested I go to the Good Feet store. I was a little confused. Why would I need a foot store? My feet are fine.
But he thought, what the heck? He had nothing to lose.
They took impressions of my feet, and with the footprint, they were able to get me a personalized arch support that lifted pressure off my back.
So the source of your back pain was right under your toes.
It's something maybe I should have known, but I found out in the nicest possible way.
See how arch supports work for you with a free fitting. Find your Good Feet store at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station.
This is the iHeartRadio Sports Report.
In the Stanley Cup Final, the Florida Panthers got themselves back into the series with a 3-2 overtime win last night over the Vegas Golden Knights. In fact, it was the Panthers' first ever win in a Stanley Cup Final game, having been swept by the Colorado Avalanche in 1996 and losing the first two games of this series to Vegas. They also pushed their record to 7-0 in overtime in the playoffs. Game 4 is tomorrow night in Florida, 8 p.m. Eastern on TNT. Game 4 of the NBA Finals is tonight in Miami. The Heat are looking to even the series at 2 games apiece. Coverage starts at 8:30 Eastern on ABC. And in the NFL, as reported yesterday, running back Dalvin Cook will be officially released from the Vikings today to save $9 million in cap space. Cook has made the Pro Bowl in each of his last 4 seasons and has rushed for at least 1,100 yards in each of those 4 campaigns. Some of the places he could land include Miami, Buffalo, Chicago, Arizona, and San Francisco. I'm Andy West with your iHeartRadio Sports Report.
Need more? Open the free iHeartRadio app for the best sports stations in the country and the most sports podcasts with the biggest personalities in the game on demand.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay informed at ktsmradio.com. News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The Department of Justice is formally announcing charges against former President Trump. The charges are related to Trump's handling of classified documents. The DOJ said the former president stored classified information, including U.S. nuclear programs and defense and weapons capabilities. Special counsel Jack Smith said violating laws that protect national defense information puts our country at risk.
Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced.
A federal judge appointed by former President Trump will initially preside over his criminal indictment. District Judge Aileen Cannon will preside over Trump's first appearance in court in Miami Tuesday. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is resigning from Parliament. Johnson accused the House of Commons investigation into the Partygate scandal of being an attempt to drive him out. He said a letter he received from the committee looking into whether he lied to British lawmakers made that clear to him. A common drug used to treat diabetes has the power to prevent long COVID. Lisa Taylor reports.
A recent study led by researchers at the University of Minnesota found that metformin lowers the risk of getting long COVID. The study revealed that overweight or obese people between the ages of 30 and 85 who had COVID were about 40% less likely to develop long COVID if they took the drug. Participants who received metformin were compared to participants who were given a placebo. The principal investigator said the drug is inexpensive, safe, and widely available, so this discovery could have significant public health implications. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The Archdiocese of St. Louis has reached a $1 million settlement in a sex abuse case. It's one of the largest settlements related to the priest-sex abuse scandal. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The wife of Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has been moved from a federal prison in Texas to a halfway house in Southern California.
Emma Coronel Aispuro will serve out her sentence for drug trafficking and money laundering at a facility in Long Beach. The 33-year-old former teenage beauty queen was convicted in November 2021 and is scheduled to be released in September. A judge ordered her to pay $1.5 million in fines. El Chapo is serving a life sentence at a Supermax prison facility in Florence, Colorado. I'm Phil Hewlett.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will be in Oklahoma this weekend. Oklahoma is the fourth state DeSantis is visiting on his Great American Comeback Tour. He'll be at the F&E Creek Event Center near Catoosa Saturday afternoon, just outside Tulsa. DeSantis has recently picked up several endorsements from Oklahoma political figures, including former Representative Jim Bridenstine. A major music star has won a hefty sum. Lisa G has the details.
I'm the new Sinatra, and since I made it here.
Jay-Z is cashing out following his 7-year legal battle with a Los Angeles-based fragrance brand. According to TMZ, the singer will receive over $7 million from Parlux Fragrances after the brand lost its lawsuit against him. The suit filed back in 2016 claimed Jay-Z didn't hold up his end of the contract regarding the cologne Gold Jay-Z. The courts disagreed, and Parlux was ordered to pay $6.8 million with interest.
A second rare-colored lobster has been caught in New England in as many weeks. The University of New England in Maine is featuring a bright orange lobster at its science center. Researchers say the chances of finding this crustacean are 1 in 30 million. The lobster was donated to the university by a fishing crew that discovered it in Maine's Casco Bay. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance at a trip to our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival. Text the nationwide keyword LUCKY to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's LUCKY to 200-200.
This September, our iHeartRadio Music Festival is coming back to Las Vegas.
September 22nd and 23rd at T-Mobile Arena.
Streaming live only on Hulu. Tickets go on sale Friday, June 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. But starting Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, Capital One cardholders can score tickets and other awesome experiences before anyone else for 48 hours only or while pre-sale tickets last.
Visit iHeartRadio.com/Capital One for more pre-sale details.
What's in your wallet?
This report is sponsored by Off.
Off Clean Feel, so I can accessorize with studs and not with mosquitoes. I can wear my classic white crop and flag panel jeans and know that I'm covered with 8 hours of not sticky, fragrance-free protection. Get your pre-party protection on with Off Clean Feel. SC Johnson.
Okay, so we have the car payment, the rent, utilities,
and a repair bill.
What should we do?
I know. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, we could have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
Rover's Morning Glory.
It's The Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events. iHeartRadio Music Festival. Woo! All of the best free curated playlists. It's everything that rocks. All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about today because, well, it's Free for All Friday, though I will say we're kind of stuck on the whole education and schools thing because, again, we did have to squeeze that interview in the last chance we would before Election Day. Yes, it's tomorrow, and if we don't at least get 6% voter turnout, I'm going to be very disappointed. So let me just go ahead and start stocking up on the Xanax. They still make that anymore? Anyway, yes, just to be the incoming depression here. I've long ago given hope up on the 10% double digits for this time around because runoffs in school boards, as much as they are lightning rod issues these days, I swear, it's just, it's not happening. And interesting other debates going on in the comments, including the balance of power between administrators and teachers and the things going on with them, like some of the choice comments saying, where was it here? Buddy Vaya saying, you couldn't pay me enough to be an administrator. They work long hours and have to deal with angry parents and discipline problems all day long. But another commenter saying, like Gary De Leon, at least one comment a little bit too long, but saying basically disagreeing, saying that it's hard to remove teachers. And so, again, I guess characterize it generally as a debate between the balance of power between, again, administrators and other things. I don't want to be disappointed when it comes to the election results. That's why I'm just going to steal myself now, but well, I'll be doing my part about it, and everyone else who is able to vote in these elections in any way, because again, we got those 3 school districts, or 3 districts of the school districts, I guess I should say, 2 in EPISD, 1 YISD, and that runoff down in wait, was it San Jose or Horizon City? I need to double check that one here. But anyway, let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now, because of course that's what we do here for Free for All Friday. The number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And if you can't handle me disagreeing with you on a slight point here on a, yeah, no, that's not how I took that part of it, and you're just going apoplectic on it, I'm sorry, that's just hilarious over in the comments. Anyway, we're not feed the trolls anymore with that. We do have on the line with us Stephen on the east side here with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey there. What's on your mind?
So, yeah, it is Friday, so might as well talk about some other things.
Sure.
Earlier this week, it looked like there was a whistleblower saying that what people suspected a long time ago about Biden basically taking bribes, altering foreign policy in Ukraine, China, other things like that, and somehow getting some kickbacks for it. So there's whistleblower came out about that, and looks like they were trying to shut that down. I don't know if any of that information is going to come out, but there were some suspicious things about his time as vice president in Ukraine and his son getting money and kickbacks and things like that. I'm not sure if any of that's going to come out ultimately, but it seems pretty corrupt. And his brother also is getting money. And at some point, Hunter Biden was paying like tens of thousands of dollars supposedly a month in rent to his dad. So maybe that's the way they were funneling money back over to him, but that was coming out. But then the bigger news that overshadowed that is Trump being indicted for the documents case. And it looks like he had some documents that, I think a lot of previous administrators had lots of classified documents. But the thing that Trump probably didn't understand is that he should have understood is that they're trying to get him on anything. They're investigating him on everything ever since before he even got into office. And so he should have tread way more carefully, because they're not going to let Donald Trump get away with things that other administrators would have. I don't even think they probably looked through the documents that Obama took with him, for example, and they're not going to. But they're going to go through everything Donald Trump did with a fine-tooth comb. They're going to try to find something. And I suspect they did find something that wasn't technically declassified. So they're going to throw the book at him. If you remember when Hillary had her private secret server thing, they're like, well, we want to see those files. Let us know which emails we can look at. But if you've got other personal things, like you're talking about weddings and this, that, and the other, have your lawyers go through it and pick and choose which emails you want us to see, and then get rid of the other ones, and then we'll take a look at them. So that, kid gloves, deferred to their lawyers to decide which things they can choose, and you can erase the rest, you can bleach bit the rest, and we're not going to investigate it. So it's a two-tier system of justice, it appears like, and I hate trying to defend Trump all the time, because I never particularly liked him all that much. But it does seem like a two-tier system of justice, where some people are treated one way and the other way. And I mentioned this before. Why would that be? And I think it has to do with Republicans generally. There's a couple exceptions, but generally Republicans don't like big government. They don't want big federal government, more powerful government. Republicans are suspicious of big centralized power becoming tyrannical. And so we don't want a big intrusive FBI, CIA, people intruding in your everyday lives. Like I said, there's a couple exceptions, and that would be protecting children and the unborn. Those are probably the only exceptions I can think of where we don't necessarily like bigger government, but that's basically why the people who are in some people call it deep state, they feel threatened by people who don't want that deep state to have as much power.
I mean, I would agree with you on the idea that in general, conservatives, smaller government, liberals, conservatives, liberals, and Democrats in general, in favor of government, more government programs. Anyway, though, I will also say, whatever those positions are, whenever they have the reins of power, more money always seems to end up getting spent on their priorities, regardless of what how they characterize them, particularly when not in power. It always seems like the party out of power is criticizing the spending of the party in power, and vice versa. So that's certainly a thing. But I mean, otherwise, yeah, I think you're talking about the accusations. Looking at one now, oversight.house.gov. Which is, of course, noted as being under Republican control at the time. But in case you missed it, former AG Barr refutes Democrats' lies that Biden bribery investigation was closed. So, I mean, it's a House website, though, of course, there's a partisan nature of it. And also referring there to the, I think it's the 49-page indictment that has now been released from the for former President Donald Trump and some of those things. I haven't reviewed all of it just yet, because we've been focused on the local aspect of things. But I will say that anyone that has that level of accusation, it should be fully investigated. I'm always in favor of the full investigation of this, and so frankly, the other questions that you've ended up bringing up, because whether someone is doing something that is actively against, say, records keeping and secret documents, those kind of things, or doing something while currently in office, both of those sets of things should be investigated and should be dealt with appropriately. Now, whether or not there's a political impetus to it, I mean, most investigations of a sitting president would end up going through the potential of an impeachment process, which is an inherently political process. That's just the nature of that beast. So, it would probably be different. That's why I think there's been some of that focus on his family members, as much as some of the comments are saying that, Hunter Biden is not president of the United States, and yet implications of those kind of things. So, I mean, these things should probably proceed on all fronts. I'm just going to put it that way, because at the very least, if it would just say, no, actually, we were wrong, let's just dispense with it, I don't think anyone would be satisfied at any level on any of these issues with that being the situation and that being the answer. We need resolution at this point. And so seeing it through is about the only way I can see to get through these.
Yeah, so the situation with the Trump's documents, they were at Mar-a-Lago. It's got Secret Service, it's got security. No one was going to have access to those documents. They knew that he had these documents. He knew he had these documents. He had talked to the feds and said, yeah, here they are. They said, make sure they're locked up and protected. And there was basically a dispute between the lawyers of Donald Trump and the National Archives. Which documents can you keep? Which documents can you not keep? We want these back. Well, let's talk to our lawyers. And they were basically arguing over what you can keep and what you can't keep. And that was going to go to court, and they were going to settle it all out. But instead of doing that, they decided to raid Mar-a-Lago and then make a big thing out of it. So that's basically what happened there, which is a different situation from what happened with Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden technically didn't have the authority to have the documents that he had in the first place, because he wasn't president, and taking stuff from the SCIF and different things that you're not supposed to be doing that. So, and then of course bleach bidding and erasing things before anybody could see what Hillary had. It's a different story, but we'll see how this plays out. Sure. Like I said, I think Donald Trump wasn't very smart for just being prepared for people coming after him for any little thing. He should have been much more careful, knowing what they're willing to do with the Russian collusion hoax and everything else. So anyways, I wanted to talk about something else, because I forgot who it was earlier. I wanted to make a point about these transitioning and things like that. So it's Megan Fox. She's an actress.
Oh,
she's got
okay.
three
Right.
boys. But she's been known for dressing these three boys up as girls, and even against kind of their wishes. But you have to understand that there's this ideology of intersectionality, where your value as a human being is higher if you are a minority of some kind. So the worst thing you can be on that scale is a straight white male. So if you're a leftist and you've got three boys, they're going to grow up to be straight white males. That's the worst thing that could possibly be. So Megan Fox is motivated to say, well, no, are you sure you don't want to be a girl? And there's school teachers who are activists who, say, well, half of my class is some kind of LGBTQ, QIA plus something. And, of course, these people are rewarding them and say, oh, you're so brave, and becoming part of a community and something different. And sometimes mothers are like, oh, my child's different, my child's unique, and their own narcissism kind of pushes people towards that. And that's a problem. And it didn't only just happen with trans and different things. In the past, it was beauty pageants or parents pushing their kids in sports, and they're trying to live their lives through their children or make them unique or special or better. And this is playing out in this way now. And I think that's a little bit dangerous. And like I said, I'm not sure if the Texas law is the best way to deal with it. But on the other side of it, California is going the other way on it, of course, because they're two different ends of the spectrum there. California,
fair enough.
The state is going to probably be able to, they're working on this law right now, basically take your child, and if a psychiatrist says we're going to transition your child against the wishes of the parents, they're going to be able to do that there. So it's like the other end of the spectrum there that is not good.
Yeah, that's not the way. It's an interesting description you have of both, the actions that you feel the former president should have taken, but also of intersectionality. I mean, the way I've always taken that is it's tempting to think of someone as, one thing at a time, of being, straight or white or male, but all those things at once have, or any other factors about them, it causes differences and makes the people's experiences different than any one of those things later on. Anything else are going to be different about here. But I will say this, that anyone that is thinking that of anyone for their category or classification, be it the, immutable circumstances, sincerely held beliefs, etc., is therefore lesser because of some aspect of it, can get right out of my face. Because saying that, oh, well, you are such and such descriptors that you call yourself and are identifiable for you, oh, well, that means that you're something, like saying, oh, shut up, you don't have a place to speak here because you are this, or something like that. Like, unless we're talking about very specific issues, like hey, what does it mean for this particular subset, and someone outside of it is saying that, well, this is how I think they should think. Like, yeah, that's one thing, and kind of one of the reasons that we like talking about our local issues here. And of course, it's Free for All Friday. I'm not trying to ding you on that or anything, but I will say that anyone saying that, oh, well, you are these categories, therefore you are worth less. I mean, literally, at a certain point, that becomes insert your ism here: racism, sexism, just bigotry. Bigotry is the general term there, and trying to say that anyone is less than is just, again, you've lost me entirely, and your points are going to suffer as a part of it. But the part you're almost describing, though, there's an older phrase or a different type of circumstances: Munchausen syndrome, or Munchausen by proxy. There's been a few made for TV movies, maybe not exactly Hallmark, but in that kind of vein, because it's not a heartwarming Christmas story about someone who, people who can get sick or have cancer can end up having more attention put on them, and some people who have other issues going on may see that and think, oh, that's how I can get people to pay attention to me. So that almost seems more in the vein of what you're describing there, the whole I will use my children to get me attention if this is the way I can do it. I can't imagine it's widespread, though I also can't guarantee that it never happens, because a lot of messed up people out there. I'll just put it that way. And there are, of course, circumstances which people have, for whatever reason. Narcissism is a good general one for it. Oh, there's attention being lavished on me. Oh, isn't it for me? Any of those kind of things. And anyone doing that, I guess, got to say, is going to be reprehensible as hell in my mind. So I tell you what, we got to take that break now. I do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you as well. So let's go ahead and take that break, and coming back, and we'll get to more on the phone lines, more on the calls, comments, everything that we do. So if you want to get on that line, of course, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Earlier crash in the East Valley, southbound on Loop 375 before Montana, between a semi and a truck. As delay has disappeared on the loop, but it's still there on the spur. Eastbound Liberty Expressway from the Gateway to the loop, it's a 17-minute delay. In the lower valley, I-10 eastbound at the loop, an earlier crash has the eastbound lanes closed from I-10 east to Loop 375 northbound. And traffic slow on I-10 eastbound from Piedras over to Geronimo with a 5-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Off.
Off Clean Feel, so I can accessorize with studs and not with mosquitoes. I can wear my classic white crop and flag panel jeans and know that I'm covered with 8 hours of not sticky, fragrance-free protection. Get your pre-party, protection on with Off Clean Feel. SC Johnson.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are, iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anyone else, and we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to show you how iHeartMedia can work for you. Get started today at iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Car crimes are on the rise. Protect yourself and your valuables this holiday season. When you park your car, always lock it down. Never leave keys in your vehicle. Never leave your windows down. Don't leave your valuables in plain sight, or you might return to a terrible sight. Try to park in well-lit areas. And most importantly, always lock it down. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com.
And now Martha Stewart for Skechers. When I make a dish or embark on a craft project, I always use the finest, most fabulous ingredients and materials. Which is why, when it comes to footwear, I love Skechers. Because Skechers is the comfort technology company and uses the most luxurious, innovative materials and designs to make wondrously comfortable footwear with all the fits and features like Arch Fit and Skechers' world-famous air-cooled memory foam. It's exactly the way I'd make shoes.
Find Skechers at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Dazzling decal on Daisy's Donuts window. Bold banner at Barry's Barbershop. Prominent poster at Penny's on Park Place.
This is your sign. Well, signs. To try Staples and see the difference. Get $15 off signs, banners, and posters when you spend $75 or more.
From Staples, and I couldn't miss it.
N617. Visit staplesconnect.com/printbig for details.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at kcsmradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. So, and a lot we're getting into today, we're revolving around some familiar subjects, even as we're always new stuff coming up. And, well, that's kind of one of the beauties of today, is that you can bring it up. We're taking on all the subjects, just calling in, keep it clean. Don't want to have to exercise the dump button on you. But in any case, we got a lot of stuff we're talking about here and continuing to do so. Phone line's full up at the moment, but keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And a lot of people chiming in, adding their 2 cents. And of course, we appreciate that if you so choose to do so. Wherever you're able to tune in, see what's going on, participate to your level of, your desired level or whatever it is you're wanting to do. That's the right place for you to be. So let's dive right back into those phone lines now. We do have Marco over in Central on the line with us here right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
How's it going, Andrew?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
I always knew you were Lucifer. I always knew it.
The horns hide under the hair.
Yeah. Stop going against the Hegelian dialectic. Agree with him, damn it.
Listen, I have been arguing since apparently I could say the word no, and to expect anyone to just be like, oh, yeah, no, you're totally right. Moving on. I don't think they've been listening to this show for that long.
Yeah, exactly. They should make their segments a little shorter. Hey, so let's focus on the big view. And I'm gonna make things very simple. Good and evil. Okay?
Okay.
And perspective. Okay. So we look at the big thing. Let's look at the global view of things. Look at Bolsonaro. He's a bad man. He's thrown out by Lula, who's sponsored by narco terrorists down there, but he's the good guy. And Lula is the bad guy. This is how he's framed in the media. And the media is full of good people. And so now look at the president of El Salvador, how he's making these super prisons, and he's made his country super safe, but for some reason he is a human rights person who's just violated these people's rights and building these super maxes for MS-13 is the worst thing in the world. Let's look at the way Donald Trump, indicted. You look at Biden, you look at Trump, and honestly, if Trump would have just gone away, nobody would care. But they hate his guts, and so they want to indict him. And now let's start to shrink it down here a little bit. Look at Beals, look at Jacqueline. The reason people are frustrated, and I say it this way, okay? The reason people look at Sri Lanka, that's another good example. They collapsed their economy because of global warming and stuff. I want people like Eric to understand. It's not that people don't look at the acronyms behind people's names and are impressed. It's that we look at the acronyms behind these people's names as they're telling us that a man can be a woman, that there's global warming, that there's all these things that can be challenged. And when we challenge them, they immediately look at us and say, "Oh, how dare you stupid hillbilly? What are your qualifications? And so they've abandoned common sense, and they try to validate their points through education. That's the saddest thing, is that education has become the lightning rod. And so now you have parents that are like, "Hey, I honestly, like, I heard Jacqueline and I heard Beals. And not to my biases, okay? But Jacqueline, you're asking her these questions, and they are so measured. I don't see this, and I don't see that. I'm like, Ms. Beals, well, not Ms. Beals, Ms. Jacqueline.
Sure, the one from today.
Do you not understand that there are books in the library that are grooming young adult minds, like young children's minds? I don't want to say adults, young children's minds. There's a book that's out there that literally teaches them how to go to Tinder and make these accounts. And so when these parents see this, they're not, and right now it's peaceful, Andrew. I want you to understand, right now it's peaceful. But that can end, Eric. Look at what happened in Los Angeles. Okay, you had Muslims and Christians. That's Muslims and Christians going to these teachers, okay, that have all these acronyms behind their names and all these sitting members on the school board saying, hey, we don't want you teaching our kids anything to do with sexuality. We want you to teach our kids reading, writing, and arithmetics. It's none of your business. And so what happened there? It turned violent. And right now, it's on the cusp. I promise you this. You see Christians and Catholics right now, give it about 3 or 4 months when it just starts to go, like if the economy takes a dump, you will look for anybody to put your finger on why this happened. And they will look at teachers, you are the cause because you're teaching nothing to our kids but degeneracy. And then you'll have gang members, Christians, Catholics, and they're not just going to go and protest. They're going to storm the building because they're sick and tired of elites telling them what to do, how to act. This is why COVID was such a disaster. This is what I want Eric to understand, that people don't want a finger in their chest. They just want to be free. And if you can't be free, then you're somebody's slave. And at one point, the slave gets tired.
I mean, the idea of someone saying this is how you have to live your life, I mean, I would not accept that in my own life, and I wouldn't expect to put that on anyone else, saying that, no, you're not allowed to be, do, exist, act that way. I will say, I'll disagree with you slightly on the idea of sexuality. Sexual content is different from sexuality, because recognizing and mentioning, like, I mean, me saying that I am married to a woman, that is me mentioning my sexuality. And doesn't necessarily bring up anything about, hey, kids, here's how you do any particular activity. I'm not even going to try to describe it, not going to go down that road. But the point is that, I mean, yeah, I get a lot of these terms end up getting, again, the lightning rod issue. I'll certainly agree with you on that point of this. This certainly has become of it. And that's where I think some of the things that are opposed to, from the perspective that you're going at, opposed to the things that you are, end up going maybe a little bit too far. I think it was, again, a bill out of Missouri that was saying that there should be no mentions of sexuality in elementary school. And there were some people cheering that. I mean, it was put forth by one of the state reps. And the way as written, it would come down to, like, you couldn't mention Martha Washington because it would imply that George Washington was married to her and therefore he was heterosexual, which is mentioning of sexuality. So there are certainly ways that, frankly, in any direction, things can go too far, which is why a measured response, and this is what we want and this is what we were going to want to achieve, and not overcorrecting, I think is pretty important. Because if we're just saying that, oh, no, like knee-jerk reaction, there's no positive association with a knee-jerk reaction. No one's like, oh, knee-jerk reaction, spot on, absolutely, was 100% right. No, there's a reason we call it that, because it ends up being, oh God, like it literally, it's your startle response is what we're talking about there. So if that's the level of then action we are planning to take, yeah, no, simple answer, no, until we come down to it as being something of okay, but what are the actual goals we're wanting to achieve, and how do we get there? In this case, talking about schools, the goals that I would like to see is, school achievement, setting up kids for the future. And so anything that is like getting in the way of that is not something I'm going to particularly encourage or be happy about happening. But also overcorrecting, saying that, well, I'm concerned about these things and therefore we need to make sure it's not happening. We can also, again, overcorrection can absolutely be a thing. And so, as I pretty much always end up advocating for, a measured response, saying that, okay, what are our goals, what are the ways we can go about this and achieve this, is probably the best way to end up going about that here. But I mean, these issues have never gotten any simpler, and I doubt they will anytime in the future. So I think that the best way, at least what we can do on this program, is at least talk about them, so people can help formulate their ideas and maybe eventually come up with a plan of action on it.
I want people to just take a second and listen to each other. We really got to Miss Jacqueline, honestly, I want to be mean, but I will be reserved. You know, we should be respectful to everybody. But you're not being honest, and it comes through. And to Miss Beals, I commend you. We need more citizens out there. Sure, we some of us might be dropouts. Some of us might be carpenters. I want everybody to realize one thing before I leave you with this. Ahmadinejad, who was the leader of Iran for a while, was the president, was a garbage man, a trash man. And so the ascension of power isn't always the conventional thing that you see. People that are with high accolades are going to become super powerful. Look at Donald Trump. Most people would say he's a hillbilly millionaire. And a lot of people like myself call him Orange Man Rat. So, hey, guys, let's all just take 1 second, take a step back and recognize that we don't have to agree. But at one point, it's either going to come to fisticuffs, or it could be like Gandhi, and we all just chill out, listen to each other, and let the extremists push, because eventually the ones that are level-headed will come out on top. Have a good Friday, El Paso. Have a good Friday, Andrew. And I'll leave the little quote on your motorcycle to you. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate that. Well, thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there as well.
Thanks, brother.
And with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. I'll just say this, that absolutely, I mean, consensus building. We've seen it way too much in the national legislature. Take it there for a second of it's either my way or the highway, where we have to have all the power or nothing gets done. And that is super not the way that any part of this country is supposed to work. Consensus of saying, hey, we may disagree, but can we figure out a path forward? Literally what the intention and design was, and that's not even my reading of it. That's like, it's the Federalist Papers. I mean, come on. Anyway, so let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the comments, more of the calls, more of everything we do on the line at this point during the program here. So if you want to chime in, add your 2 cents. Phone lines, okay, they just filled back up, but keep that number handy. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update. The FBI is looking for a 21-year-old man named Isaiah Letts Rivera. The agency says Rivera is considered armed and dangerous and is affiliated with gangs connected to the El Paso, Las Cruces area. A federal arrest warrant was issued for Rivera last July after he was accused of receiving a firearm by a person under indictment. The 3 suspects in an alleged road rage incident that turned deadly are due to make their first appearance in court today. Raul, Cristian, and Jose Orozco, who are all charged with murder in connection to a shooting that happened on Tuesday night. The Orozcos claim that a gun went off during a struggle, but the police report says that story doesn't check out because the gun was fired twice. A man accused of breaking into a home in Northeast El Paso says the devil made him do it. Police say Tristan Billingsley broke into a house near Parkland Middle School. For more news headlines, head to our website, cbs4local.com. I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound in the Lower Valley at Loop 375. The interchange ramp still blocked from a crash there and a backup to Zaragoza. An earlier crash on Memorial Highway southbound before Montana Avenue is reopened. All lanes are back open. Still causing slowing indirectly on the spur. Eastbound Liberty Expressway from the gateway to the loop. It's a 15-minute delay. And there's a crash on Border Highway westbound at the 54 gateway. That's off to the right. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is forecaster Nasai Mancini. Well, folks, we're in for
some pretty hot temperatures this weekend, even into next week as well. We'll see those temperatures in those 90s. We'll see a little bit of those breezes in the afternoon hours as well. So a little bit of those breezy conditions cooling us off just a little bit. Our lows are going to be in those 60s for this weekend, and then they'll warm on up into those 70s as we get into Tuesday of next week. Reminder, you can always head on over to kfoxtv.com for the latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Off.
Off Clean Feel, so I can accessorize with studs and not with mosquitoes. I can wear my classic white crop and flag panel jeans and know that I'm covered with 8 hours of not sticky, fragrance-free protection. Get your pre-party protection on with Off Clean Feel. SC Johnson.
Temu.com, that's TEMU.com, is giving you an exclusive opportunity to unlock a $100 shopping spree on their app. Temu is the most downloaded app on the App Store, and this is your chance to get a $100 coupon bundle you can use on millions of items. All you have to do is download the Temu app, enter the promo code IHEARTTEMU into the search bar, and you'll have $100 you can use to treat yourself. Just download the Temu app and enter promo code IHEARTTEMU into the search bar and start on your $100 shopping spree.
Off Clean Feel, so I can accessorize with studs and not with mosquitoes. I can wear my classic white crop and flag panel jeans and know that I'm covered with 8 hours of not sticky, fragrance-free protection. Get your pre-party protection on with Off Clean Feel. SC Johnson.
This report is sponsored by Off.
Being aware of the world around you is important.
When it comes to news, yes, I am.
So we're feeding your need to know 24/7 at the top and bottom of the hour.
I like to know what's going on in my locality, abroad.
Events of the world.
Fairly so. Yeah, I'm pretty connected.
Or down the street.
For the most part, I know what's going on.
You know, I need to be aware and what to look out for, and I'm real cautious, so yeah, I need to have that.
It's what we do. News Radio 690 KTSM.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Those, of course, dropping those likes and reacts that we do appreciate, including Angel Reda, Wendy, Gary De Leon, Flaco Jimenez, Sean Gardner, James Holmes, Louis Panado, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Ida Beza Gardner. Do appreciate all that, and however you're chiming in, do appreciate it certainly. So let's get back and squeeze in the phone calls we can before the end of our program here today. So let's just jump right back into it right now. We do have Jerry in Northwest in the line with us here right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for taking my call, Andrew. I want to shift gears here. I want to talk about Second Amendment.
Ooh, okay.
Did you hear what Gavin Newsom is wanting to do?
Yeah,
Governor from California.
Yeah, so if I've got the right, if there's a few things floating around, the one that I think I've heard most about is a new amendment, adding in a new amendment to raise that age of purchase to 21, among various other things. But I think, anytime you start talking amendments, that's one of the more significant parts.
Yes, he wants to add a 28th Amendment and basically get rid of what they call, or he calls, the left calls assault weapons, raise the age to 21 to be able to buy a weapon, and to reduce the size of magazines, the capability of rounds that can be held by magazines, Bach magazines particularly.
Right.
So, and the other one is the Governor Polis from Colorado. Have you heard what he's done?
I was mostly focused on the Newsom part of it, so no, I may have missed that part of it.
Okay, he signed an executive order for Colorado where he's banning all ghost guns, basically.
Okay.
Those of you that do not know what a ghost gun is, basically it's a gun without a serial number that is built in somebody's home or garage, and it comes in a kit which basically back in the 1980s, they allowed that with the BATFE. Most people hear it as ATF.
Right.
It was allowed an individual can build their own firearm.
Right.
It was in the regulations. I believe it was under the 1986 Firearms Owners Protection Act, FOPA. I believe that's where it was covered.
Yeah, I mean, there have been implications of that for years now, because even before 3D printers, the advent of that, which still threatens to upend like a whole lot of stuff, including regulations on this. I mean, you got an organization specifically opposed to this, like Distributed Defense, the ones I'm aware of. But that's why even before that point, there were the, speaking specifically about the AR-15, the 80% lower receiver, idea that, I mean, at what point does a chunk of material, metal in this case, end up becoming a firearm? And so, yeah, based on some of the similar types of designations, saying that something that was 80, quote unquote, 80% along the way, basically it ended up being that it was shaped in the right way, but some of the holes weren't, like the magazine well and the area for where you put in the actual fire controls themselves was still one solid chunk. That has come under some other regulation more recently than that, or at least the specter of it. But yeah, the idea that you're able to manufacture a gun in your own home was, prior to this, and in Colorado, considered legal with some regulations and restrictions on it.
Yes, and also there's a group up there in Colorado that wants to get rid of all firearms. And I don't say there's not one in Texas either, but I'm just making people aware of what's going on around the nation.
Sure.
So that we can keep our amendments, keep our rights under, especially the Second Amendment, because that's the one that we can use to protect all the rest of the amendments. I know First Amendment's very important also, but if you don't have a way to defend yourself or stop other tyrants forcibly, then you can lose all the rest of the amendments. They won't amount to nothing.
I guess I'm not surprised.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, sure thing.
And have a good evening and a good weekend, El Paso.
Oh, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there as well. Question coming in kind of related to that. Edgar Ortiz asking, speaking about the 2A, any details about AR pistol braces? Basically, still the Knicks put on them here, but I also have to say that, well, everyone asking the ATF for their own personalized letter on their brace was part of what led to this in the first place here. So I'm just saying, just fill out the Form 3 and get your SBR. I got neither of them here because I got no particular interest in it. But anyway, let's get to the last squeezing the phone calls we can before the end of the show here. We do have Rich calling in from Socorro here on the line with us. Rich, thanks for joining us.
Andrew, how you doing?
Doing right there. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to make some comments here. Some of your callers that call in that think that an education or having a degree is the greatest thing in the world to have. I mean, it's so important to have. Don't get me wrong. But it's not necessary to do the right calls in life, you know. There's something called wisdom that comes through life. And one of those is being a parent. And there's nothing more important to me than being a parent is the care for your kids. So if you have a person who's running, like this lady you had earlier today, make a comment. When you made a comment about the books in school, in the libraries, she kind of copped out and said something about, well, we have a person with a master's degree that's in charge of the librarian or whatever. That's a cop-out, man. She's not listening to what the parents want. And I think it's important for the viewers and the listeners out there that are listening to your program that you're voting for your kids, not for the bureaucrats that are running our schools. I think it's ridiculous that we have people like this, that just because you got a degree, you're the smartest thing that ever hit the earth, and that's not true. Do you know who Charles Goodyear was?
Oh, I've heard the name, but I'm not placing it at the moment.
Charles Goodyear was the founder of the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
This guy didn't finish grade school. I think he went to maybe 5th grade, and he accomplished so much things in the tire industry. He made the big giant tires for the first rockets we sent to the moon. This man had a saying. He says, "Not what you know that counts, but rather what you do with what you know." With such a low education, but he was brilliant. He was smart. Just because you're a mom or a housewife don't degrade them with your arrogance that because you have a degree, you're something perfect. We're not all perfect, but we do need some insight from the parents in their schools so they can judge to see what's being taught. Not just because you have somebody that's been, got a master's degree, whatever the case it is, that they got to make the decisions for the parents. I'm sorry, that's all.
No, I appreciate the point in the call there. I guess the kind of what comes to mind here is the difference between potential and realization of that potential. And that, I mean, someone can, they're born with a certain amount of potential, what they could or could not achieve there. And that education, from my perspective, ends up expanding that potential. It ends up making it so that there may be more opportunities, more availability, other things that they can therefore do with that, kind of like, raising a ball up higher and higher. It has more potential for energy, more potential for things to do, happen, and be done with it. But potential is one thing, because if you never, say that ball example, you never release it, that potential will never be realized. So, I mean, we've got, plenty of, highly educated, but never did anything with it people out there. We've got plenty of people who are uneducated that, have managed to do major things in their lives, and vice versa. This is by no means to say that anyone who has made those choices in their life is necessarily better than the other. It's just a difference of the potential and what they've realized with it. And I got to say that someone's saying, and it ends up being kind of an appeal to authority in a way, saying, well, they've got degrees, therefore they are inherently better. It's more of a question of, okay, what have you done with it that I'm more interested in?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And I want to tell all El Pasos that could vote in this area, because I'm not in that area, go for the housewife, go for the mom, because they're the ones that know what kids are about, not the ones that don't give a heck about them.
No.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
Andrew.
Well, thanks for your point and your call. You have a good one there as well.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Tell you what, I think we can squeeze in one more quick call. We do have Robert in Chaparral. Robert, we got like about 2 minutes here. Robert, you there with us? Yeah, well, we may have lost Robert anyway. So, okay, I think we'll just end up calling it right there anyway. So, if you weren't able to get us, or we lost you for some technical reason, I do apologize for that. But
hi, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, we got about a minute and a half now.
Sorry, I was on mute. What a bozo. Hey, I won't go too long then, as long as I wanted. But hey, I'm just wanted to let you know that in New Mexico, and it came up in some of these subjects here,
Sure.
We're doing referendum petitions. And referendum petitions, New Mexico's constitution allows the people to challenge laws that are passed by the legislature. And as you may know, and I discussed before, of course, restricting guns, none of them really passed through, but we've got about 6 petitions that we're going through referendum. We're going to be along Chaparral tomorrow trying to sign these. We need 180,000 to stop the laws in their tracks. There are already bills that are in existence right now, but if we stop them in 180,000 signatures by June 15th, which is probably not possible, it'll be put on the 2024 ballot, but we can get 72,000 in a year to be put on the 2024 ballot so that voters can vote, not our what I'm calling, Andrew, our sinister legislature. Anyways, it's a lot of these bills are taking away parents' rights on their children and health care and doing some sinister stuff to it. Anyways, there's HB 7, House Bill 7, House Bill 207, Senate Bill 13, and a few other bills and everything like that. And we're trying to get these passed. And anyways, it puts a referendum too on our own legislature that you've got six referendum bills that the governor signed, and it was slow walked by the Senate by the state Secretary of State. So.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for telling us about that. Tell you what, send me a note on that if you can. My email, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com, because I'd like to hear more about that and what's going on and, what efforts are happening, and to try and then put that on the ballot here. So if you can do that, would be interested in talking about that further and knowing a little bit more about it.
Sure. Well, one other thing I wanted to run. Do you know Chloe Cole? Jordan Peterson, right?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with the Canadian psychologist we're talking about there, right?
Yeah, and he had an interview with Chloe Cole, and Chloe, she's 18 now, but at 15 she was she was convinced to transgender, and so had her, her breasts taken off and everything, and she's just detransitioning, and she by pressure she wanted to do that. Anyways, that's part of this bill too, and some of the things that people were talking about. But I'll send that to you, as well as
sure.
Better Together New Mexico is going through these referendums.
Okay. Excellent. I'll take a look at that. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, and with that, I'll tell you what, I think we just went a little bit too far over, so we're going to have to leave it there for today because we are basically out of time here for this program. Couple of notes for you before I end up leaving you. Of course, coming up this weekend, the El Paso History Radio Show will be going into some of the history of, well, the state park system in El Paso and, of course, across the state. They got the 100th anniversary celebrations of that going on right now. So we got on guests from the Weiler Aerial Tramway, including updates on what is going on with the tramway and what the potential future of it is. Spoiler alert, there was some funding from the Texas legislature, but we'll get into all of that and talk further about it. But we're going to have to leave it there for today because we are out of time here for this program. So we'll keep doing it. It's going to be end of Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. A couple of notes on what we're working on for you next week. More on some of those purchasing scandals or investigations going through city council right now. More on what the aftermath and continuation of the legislative session is. So we'll talk more about that and a whole lot more. But I'll thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show today. And if you're sincerely wanting to talk about the issues that affect us here in the borderland, and of course on Fridays beyond, you're in the right place because we do this every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So that'll do it for us for today, for this week. Until next time, I want y'all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great weekend, y'all. We'll see you on Monday.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update. A man accused of breaking into a home in Northeast El Paso says the devil...
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A multi-vehicle crash on the 54 Patriot southbound in Montana. All vehicles are off to the right and lanes are open there. Westbound Trans Mountain at Kenworthy, an earlier accidents on the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound slow from downtown Dallas Street exit over to Hunter Viscount, 10-minute delays. It's still stop and go on the spur, Liberty Expressway eastbound from the 54 Gateway over to the Loop, 8-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Off.
Off clean feel, so I can accessorize with studs and not with mosquitoes. I can wear my classic white crop and flag panel jeans and know that I'm covered with 8 hours of not sticky, fragrance-free protection. Get your pre-party protection on with Off Clean Feel. SC Johnson.
A catalytic converter is an important component of your car's exhaust system. They can cost several $1,000s to replace. Cats can be removed in under a minute and have a high scrap value. Keep your vehicle safe from cat burglars. Park in well-lit areas. Install a protective device. Have your VIN number etched onto your catalytic converter. It's a total catastrophe. If your catalytic converter is stolen, lock it down. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Are you suffering from seasonal allergies? Because you're not alone. Experts say pollen season